righty. Well, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing your name?
Yes, my name is Daniel Harris.
Okay. And whereabouts do you live these days?
Well, quickly, briefly about myself. I just published my book on leadership. It came out last October. It's titled On Guard, in which I defined the four pillars of leadership as courage, love, integrity, and passion. It is written to inspire the leader in people, and to inspire leaders to use CLIP, courage, love, integrity, and passion, to elevate and lead others. Before that, I just recently retired from the military after more than 31 years in the Army. And I currently running my leadership consulting firm called Muddy Boots Leadership here in Mount Pocono. So I live in Northeast PA in the Pocono Mountains in Tobyhanna.
Okay. Well, congratulations on the book publishing. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
And also thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, Megan.
What made you choose the name Muddy Boots?
Well, because in order to lead effectively, you have to move around. You cannot lead from behind the desk. You cannot lead from inside your office. You need to be among the people or the team that you're leading in order to be effective. And in so doing, you are going to get your boots dirty. You are going to wear out the soles of your shoes. I say to lead, you need to be the hardest working member on the team. And that's both figuratively as well as, being rhetorical.
That's great. Is there a leader that you look up to that kind of inspired you to lead, amongst the people like that?
Well, I tell you, I've always wanted to write a book on leadership because I think it is so important. Effective leaders will allow people to bring their best self. It encourages, it nurtures, it creates an environment in which they can do that very well. So I've always seen it as, actually I've seen the lack of it, let's put it that way, lack of which creates so much chaos and turmoil and pain. My mother used to say that, where the leaders lack vision, the people will suffer. I've seen that throughout my lives in many instances. So, it's the area, the last area where I feel that we can really get people to bring their creative self, allow them to be innovative. And once you tap into that endless well, it's limitless. It's limitless, and it'll, no matter what day or time it is or what the events are, when you've encouraged and nurtured people to be creative and be innovative, there is no end to it. So it's very exciting.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born and raised in West Africa, Liberia, and in an area called Caldwell, which is outside of the city of Monrovia. Traveled to the US in 1977. I immigrated with my parents, and my dad, was a Coptic Orthodox priest or bishop. At the time, he was finishing his studies, getting his doctorate in divinity, and the family came to join him in 1977. He had been here for 7 years prior. So I was born and raised in Liberia, West Africa, in a very strict Orthodox Catholic home, and moved. When we arrived in 1977, my family, we lived in Dad's one-bedroom apartment in Harlem, New York, and several months thereafter moved to Staten Island, and And as we say, the rest is history after that.
Okay. So of all the places you've lived, what place feels like home?
Well, I tell you, home is where I am. I think because of my military background and experience, I don't have one place to say, well, this is home. Home is where I am. I'm a fairly stable person. I don't move around much. So wherever I am, I make that home. And that is uh, getting involved in my community, in my church life, in some civic way, school, teaching, and so on and so forth. So home is where the heart is, as they say. And right now it's in Mount Pocono in Tobyhanna.
Okay. So what church body do you call home?
Trinity Episcopal Church, Mount Pocono.
Okay.
So, yep, I joined Trinity when I returned from Iraq after serving my 18-month deployment. And this was in late 2005, 2006. So I've been at Trinity, ever since.
Okay. So you didn't grow up Episcopalian, but would you consider yourself an Episcopalian now?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. My first introduction to the Episcopal Church is going back to Liberia. Our neighbors were the Flemisters. Mrs. Abiosa Flemister at the time was a lay minister in the Episcopal ministry there in Liberia. Very robust ministry, by the way. And currently she lives in Ohio with her family. Children were all grown. But she was the first one that introduced us to the Episcopal Church by inviting us to a summer youth camp when my brother and I were very young. I think we're about 9 years old at the time, maybe 8, 9, 10, around that age. So that was the very first exposure to the Episcopal Church. And of course, we enjoyed it. Coming from the strict background that we were in, going to a summer youth camp, interacting with other children, and being involved in the songs with the lay ministers, either with the guitars or playing sports, or sitting down and just being told Bible stories, et cetera, left a very memorable impression on me at the time. So coming to America and getting married, a tradition at home is when you get married, you typically go to your wife's church of faith. So when I got married, my wife was Episcopalian. So then I came back into the Episcopal Church, and I've been in it ever since.
Okay. Well, it's nice that you had that little bit of introduction to it before you joined.
That's correct. And so it wasn't new. Felt very comfortable in it, very like it's someplace I had been before. And naturally, as I got more and more involved in it and participating more and doing other things, learning more, I've come to really appreciate the Episcopal Church and its mission.
So it sounds like overall you've had a positive experience with the Episcopal Church. How does the Episcopal Church here differ from the one that you experienced in Liberia?
Well, again, I don't know that there's really much of a difference, because in Liberia I was much younger. So it was more interactive with the other young people in the ministry. But in terms of the interaction with the adults, pretty much the same. They were open, very nurturing, very, in a teaching way. I remember the songs, the games that we played. The adults were involved in that with us. They were very approachable, very warm, very friendly. And as a child, you remember that. You remember those things. So fast forward, I'm in my, 30s, 40s, now 50s. it's still the same. The people are still warm, understanding, open, accepting, and so whereas my initial introduction was when I was younger, now it's more of a conscious and willingness to be a part of and practice, the work of the ministry.
So throughout your life, what would you say is the first experience you had with the concept of color or race?
Well, that is interesting. I've had many negative experiences since coming to the US. That was the first time I even felt or understood the difference of, in skin color. Believe it or not, that was never the case in Liberia. My parents had colleagues who were white and friends who were white, and there was never even the notion of noticing or feeling a difference in skin color. So it was upon arriving at here in the US. But since then, very many negative experiences. But I think for me, the question is which one of those experiences has left an indelible and lasting memory with me. I think that's one of the questions, because there were so many different ones. And the one that's in my mind is an experience with a police officer, the New York City police officer. This was in Washington Heights with the precinct that's up there. I believe it's the 134th precinct, in which it was such a bad experience of two officers pulling me over at the intersection of 181st Street and Wadsworth. Guns drawn, it was dark, traffic light, traffic going all around us, flashlight in the car, and just a very chaotic, very hurried experience. And I am a relatively calm person, where the more you elevate, the more I move in the opposite direction. And so I try to, kind of deflate the situation and calm it down, and by cracking a joke. And I said, "Hey, officers, I'm not going to do anything, silly or stupid here. Let's just all calm down. You're two white officers with guns, and I'm a lone black man. I'm not going to do anything stupid." And I started laughing just to kind of, lighten the air a little bit. And that only served to get them more upset. And so I was getting the negative effect of what I was expecting. But it was a very humiliating and denigrating experience. I could feel the hatred and this feeling of, I don't like you. I don't want to deal with you. I don't. It was the worst experience I've had, and I was about 26 years old, and it was beyond being an officer of the law and carrying out his duties as such, because I've always been raised to respect the law, and in fact, have an admiration and respect for police officers and authority and and their work. So I could feel that this crossed that line, and even the follow-on experience was even worse. So I left there and had to leave my car, because after the entire incident, he had driven away with my car keys. He took my car keys. And so now I was there without a car, without my keys, and the car was at the intersection under the traffic light. And I went home and called my father, Bishop Harris, and he said, well, stand tight, let me call the lawyer. And this is around 10, 11 o'clock at night. I did hear from the lawyer, who advised me on what to do, and I followed through on that, filed a complaint at the police station, ensure that my report or my complaint was placed in his civilian complaint review board jacket, because of, that jacket gets reviewed when it's time for promotions and bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. So he'd be impacted that way. And then to demand a letter of apology and a return of my keys, that he needed to bring my keys to my apartment. And several hours thereafter, woke up, I think around 4 or 5 in the morning with my doorbell just ringing and banging on the door. And when I opened the door, he threw the keys inside. If I was standing in the way, I would have gotten injured. And then offering all types of expletives. You know, you think I want your car, you damn so and so, and he just walked off. And I just closed the door and I looked up and said, that is one very hateful man. He's got some serious issues. So, and it has such a big impact on me that all of these years afterwards, whenever I do talk about it, and I recently started to talk about it, I've kept it inside, and it brings out that memory of that day, frustration, anger, all of that at the same time. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with me. I think that those are the kinds of stories that we need to hear. But I'm sorry that you had to experience that and that's your story.
Yep. And here's what's even more sad, Megan, is that all of the positive experiences I've had with police officers after that one incident, and I've had many positive experiences, even when I got pulled over, you know, I'll get a warning, hey, slow it down, or take it easy, or be careful. There was even one time when I left Harlem, my office, to drive home to Pennsylvania here to get some documents that I needed to return. And I was exhausted, I was tired, and I was driving sleeping. And when the officer finally pulled me over, he says, you know, I've been behind you for the last 17 miles and you're all over the road. And I said, officer, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I need to get home. I was in my uniform. And I need to get some things, and I have to get back to my office. And to which he responded, and how are you doing that? I said, well, I'm going to drive back. And he goes, no, you're not. He said, I'm going to be sitting here waiting for you. You're not coming back here. You get home and you get some rest. And, you know, I thanked him for stopping me, because Lord knows what would have happened if I continued in that way. And I came home and I got on the phone and I slept. And that was a good experience. But all of the positive experiences are pale in comparison to that treatment that I got from that one officer. And I always will remember that. It brings up, you know, I well up with the anger and the frustration of that night. It's a shame, but it is what it is.
How have your experiences been living in the Poconos?
Well, it's mixed. And relatively my experience here until recently when I retired, have been living, and because I was in the military, I traveled a lot. I was stationed in various places. And, but since my last station, which was at the Pentagon, and coming back now, I'm home one more. I see changes, you know, in the community a lot, which I would say I did not necessarily experience that when I initially moved up into the area back in the late 90s, perhaps because it was less populated, and so maybe there was not much of an interaction. But I would say it's been good, because it's largely been within my family and within my church family. So I guess in that sense, I've been somewhat protected, and not very much involved in the social structure or the community or political structure here in the Poconos. It's been mostly with my church, and that experience has always been positive.
Let's see. How have you been involved in the Episcopal Diocese of Bethlehem?
Well, in various ministries and in many different ways. So for starters, I like to sing. So I've always been involved in the choir. I like sacred church music very much. Plus, it's also a place where I can sing and not get thrown out or get tomatoes thrown at me. So enjoy the music very much. I've also served in vestry, served as a junior warden, and currently serving as a senior warden. So I've been very involved in the diocese, and I enjoy it tremendously.
Well, thank you for your commitment to the diocese. What would you like to see change in the political, social atmosphere?
Thanks for asking that question, because I think this is something that we don't do enough, even though we think we do, and that is to have more of a discourse, more dialogue. We really don't know each other. By that, I mean really know each other in a way that you get to when you sit and talk and interact with another person, whether it's within your own race or within or in different ethnic groups, and particularly for the context of what we're talking about, with the different ethnic groups, there needs to be more of a dialogue. There are lots of preconceived notions of who we each other are. And we bring, with that, we attach a lot of biases, and we bring that with us in all of our dealings. And I think something as simple as, there's no magic pill to fix it. But I think that something as simple as discourse, conversation, gets to start to peel that onion, back. And I'm really concerned about the divisiveness of our society, of our country. And I'm painfully aware that that didn't just happen, right, with our past administration. It's always been there. And it's only that the administration echoed, or what was a mouthpiece. And so I'm not focused on the one individual. I'm focused on the 70 or 80 million of my fellow citizens who feel this way, literally feel the way he spoke. And that is concerning. That, to me, that's what's important, because these are my neighbors. These would be people I walk past in the supermarket, at Walmart, or at ShopRite. These are my children's parents. And it says to feel that way, as echoed by one individual, we need to do something at the grassroots level to fix that. And it starts with getting to know each other in a more meaningful way, because when you get to know someone, that automatically brings down many of your biases and prejudices. And it just simply starts by talking. So I would like to see more of that, and to create spaces where we can do more of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's a matter of, how do we accomplish that?
Mm-hmm. It's sometimes, in physics, there's the Occam's razor, which is, given the most complicated problem, the solution often lies in the simplest approach, right? So, and I think just starting conscious dialogues, as I think has started in some ways. So, for example, at Trinity Mount Pocono, we've embarked on a study of biases and race, and prejudices, white prejudice, white privilege, et cetera, et cetera. And that has started a very meaningful conversation, which we hope that over time we can expand it out to, eventually to the wider community. And the rector is deeply involved, which places emphasis on it. And we've even approached the diocese for assistance. And I know I've gotten some responses back from Sandy. So we're looking forward to continuing, growing that effort. But conversation, no one has gotten hurt from talking. People do get hurt when you start swinging and start hitting and start throwing objects. But from as far as I know, no one has gotten injured from talking.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share? Any stories that you might have, or any additional words of wisdom?
Well, I tell you, I'd like to submit this, and because it's unique to this country, where February is coming, is Black History Month. And I'd like to submit that while it's a day or a time that's been set aside to acknowledge and recognize, and honor, Black people in America, let's just expand that for a little bit. We have Asian Heritage Month, which comes up in May. We have Irish Heritage Month with St. Patrick's Day, that's in March. We have Native American. I want to submit that those holidays are not for those ethnic groups. So for example, Black History Month is not for Black people. Neither is Asian Heritage Month or St. Patrick's Day or Native American and so on and so forth. It's not for those peoples. It's for everyone else that is other. It is because that's an opportunity and a time for them to avail themselves and participate in dialogue with those particular ethnic groups, celebrating food, celebrating music, and all other aspects of those various ethnicities. I think that's very important, and I want to offer that we should look at it that way. So for Black History Month, I would offer and invite that whites should personally, meaningfully take the time out to engage a Black person if they don't already, are doing that or have done that in any meaningful way. Enjoy the food, enjoy the music, talk more about it, and so on and so forth. That brings down those curtains of those biases and whatever prejudices we may have. I look forward to St. Patrick's Day. I wear my green, and I often say I'm celebrating my Irish heritage. And again, and I study more. I'm a man of history, so I know a lot about the Irish heritage and history. And the same with the Asian, I avail myself of that. Native Americans and so on and so forth. I am not those. I submit to you that those groups know their history. So it's really not about them when you think about it. It's about everyone else getting to get involved in a personal, meaningful way to really understand more about that group than they otherwise would. So I'd like to submit that, and I'd like people to accept that and practice that.
Yeah, that's a great challenge. And you're absolutely right. It makes sense that, it's an opportunity to educate people about that people group. And there's plenty of opportunities, but you have to seek them out.
It's unique to us. Yeah, absolutely. It's unique to us here in America. To my knowledge, that's not done in many other countries around the world. And I think it's beautiful just to have that awareness to do it. And I think it's a wasted opportunity when we don't avail ourselves, of that. One of the quickest way that I know people like to share their heritage is through food. One when I worked in my early days, I was still doing research in head and neck cancer at Sloan Kettering. I instituted a ethnic food fast where I would have everyone bring food from your ethnic background. And it got to the point where, I mean, we had an entire hallway lined up with foods, and you just walked up and down and tasted foods from different ethnic backgrounds. And I got such a great reception from that. I mean, the doctors, even the department heads were all excited about it, and they'll bring their foods, and I tell them the only requirement is you put a 3x5 card saying what it is. If you can, list the ingredients and whether it should be served hot or cold. Excuse me. And it was very well received. And I realized that people like to share their ethnic food and the history of their foods. So that worked. But
Yeah.
also time spent in dialogue and in conversation.
Yeah. So have you seen any good opportunities advertised that are COVID friendly for engaging during Black History Month?
Well, I tell you, there are a number of things that are out there, lots and lots of podcasts and just information offered on, in the virtual world, right? Whether it's on YouTube or through podcasts and so on and so forth. And well, it's an opportunity because it's virtual. I can sit in one place and avail myself of many, over a period of time. So there are quite a few things that are out there. You just have to search for them.
Yeah.
Definitely, but none comes to mind that I can necessarily share.
Okay, that was my next question. All right, well, we will be on the lookout for opportunities, and as you say, they're out there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I look forward to hopefully having a cultural feast in the future and opportunities for conversation in person. But thank you so much for joining me virtually. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're very welcome, Megan, and thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, bye now.